Okay, this is United States Studies 5.1, and we're going to talk a little bit about the ancient history of North America, starting in about 4000 BC. We're going to go to the scriptures and to words of the prophet Joseph Smith to talk about what happened on this continent in the first couple thousand years. Okay, now, in the beginning, and it's been certified by science and so forth, there was one landmass on the earth. And eventually it broke apart, right? Eventually, during about 2200 BC or so, it broke apart. And we have today the continents. And this is verified by scientific information. So let's talk about this continent, this landmass that has some history to it that in the scriptures. Okay, first of all, we were taught by the prophet Joseph Smith that this land was a very choice and special land. First of all, Adam and Eve were here in the Garden of Eden, and then when they were expelled from the Garden of Eden, they went to a place that is called Adam-on-Diamond, and you can go visit the Adam-on-Diamond today. It has been found, and it's being developed and so forth, and that's where Adam and Eve lived after they left the Garden of Eden. Now, what was the Adamic civilization like? Well, according to the records we have, they weren't too successful, Adam and Eve, in their first children. Their first children rebelled against them. They didn't believe in God, and they didn't like to listen to their father and their mother until Abel came along. And Abel was a righteous individual. Then his brother Cain. Well, Cain loved Satan more than God, according to the scriptures, and was jealous of Abel and killed Abel. And so we have this division in society, Adam and Eve trying to hold down the fort and so forth, and their children are just going astray and not behaving themselves and so forth. What were the people like? Well, they were farmers, hunters, and herders. Okay? It wasn't until Seth was born that men started to be righteous. Okay, that Adam and Eve had some righteous posterity. Now you can mock this if you want to, but it's all recorded in scriptures, in ancient writings, and so forth. Now, you had a split between the Adamic civilization and Cain, right? There's two different civilizations, two different peoples, and so forth. Cain's followed Satan, and there was a degradation in that line, meaning they lost the light of Christ. They didn't have that to guide them and to help them, and their minds were darkened, and so what they were able to accomplish was not as much as the followers of God, Adam, Seth, and so forth in the patriarchs. Okay, Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, and so on down through Noah. Now, at this point in time, it is kind of interesting if we just push a curtain away and we talk about the Clovis and Folsom peoples. Now, these are the very oldest civilizations that have been found through archaeology and DNA on the North American continent. And what is very interesting is that their DNA is found nowhere but on the North American continent. And so that is kind of interesting, and they date way, way back. And they were hunters. The Clovis and Folsom societies were hunters. They hunted the giants. And it kind of, I'm thinking, Okay, the mastodons and mammoths and so forth, they hunted the giants. And so, was that the giants in the land that is talked about in the Bible? Maybe, maybe not. But that's how they lived. Now, also, possibly here was the city of Enoch, Zion, the city of Enoch. And at that point, these people were very righteous. They were so righteous that the Lord came and visited them. And finally, they were taken up to heaven. If you remember the story of Enoch and so forth. So why the flood? Well, after the city of Enoch was taken up, then we have left just a few righteous people. There was Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah, who were the patriarchs. And Noah completed, I think it was a 120-year mission, trying to convert those that were left. Those that were converted, according to one verse in the Book of Moses, were taken up to join the city of Zion. And so no one was left here that was righteous except for Noah and his family. So we come to the time of the flood. The Lord teaches Noah how to build the ship. His sons help him. Two of every kind was loaded upon the ship, and we have the flood. Now, what happened to North America? Well, it wasn't at that point North America. It wasn't a separate continent. It was still all one continent. Well, after the flood, about a couple hundred years after the flood, we get a separation of the land masses, and we come to a time when the people that landed in the eastern hemisphere then, what became the eastern hemisphere, in the area of Turkey, Mount Ararat, and they went down into Mesopotamia and so forth to the river valleys. These people were very much influenced by Nimrod, who was not at all in favor of God. And so they built a Tower of Babel because he was mad. He was mad that God had destroyed his fathers. And so, well, he wasn't his fathers because he was descended from Noah. Everybody at that point was descended from Noah. Everyone alive now is descended from Noah. But he was mad that the Lord had destroyed the earth. And he said, it's never going to happen again. So he urged people to build this Tower of Babel, right? Well, okay, from there, when the Lord confused the languages, he sent groups out all over the world. We have evidence of that now, particularly in China. And what happened in China, it's very, very interesting. There were several colonies, priesthood colonies set out from that point. One of them was the Jaredites, and they came to North America. They were led to North America. And it's very, very interesting. I want to, and then after the Jaredites, they lasted for a long, long time, about in the early 2000s to about 600 BC. And but they became corrupt. And what the Lord said was that this is a choice land, and whatsoever nation will possess it shall be free from bondage, from captivity, and from all other nations under heaven, if they will but serve the God of the land, who is Jesus Christ. And that is the judgment that is upon this land that we call the United States and Canada and so forth. That is the judgment on this land, that we must serve the Lord, the God of this land, who is Jesus Christ, or we will be swept off when we are full in iniquity. So, what happened? The Jaredites lasted for approximately 1,400 years, and then they were destroyed. They destroyed each other. Then the Nephites came about 587 or so BC, and they lasted to 421 AD. So they had approximately 1,000 years, and they followed the same pattern. Okay? They forgot God, and they were destroyed. Now, we have to understand that in order for our nation to survive, the United States of America, that judgment is still in effect on the land. And this is a choice land. And it will be free from bondage and captivity and from all other nations under heaven if we but serve the God of the land, who is Jesus Christ. So, that's kind of important to know. And that is the end of Lecture 5.1.